Okay, zoning board, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. Go for it.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome everybody to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for November 15th on 2022. We have a busy schedule this evening. We have five public hearings. I'm going to ask the applicants if you can, try to stick to 10-minute time frame, 5 minutes for consultants, and public hearing 3 minutes apiece. We're going to try to get through this. First application is Kevin Bishop at 21 Old Stone Highway in Springs, Suffolk tax map number 300-63-5-10. And the applicant again is Kevin Bishop. Size and location is 42,125 square feet at 21 Old Stone Highway in Springs. The description is to allow the extension of a deck with gravel underneath by roughly 27 square foot to be no larger than 36 square foot in total, and to allow 2 AC units with gravel and screen wall to remain with 100 foot of tidal wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-440, and 3 variances are required from 255-430 wetland setbacks. 1 variance of 80 feet and 2 variances of 78 are required to allow an existing deck expansion with gravel under 20 feet and an existing AC unit and screen wall to remain 22 feet from the wetlands where 100-foot setbacks are required, and any other relief necessary from the East Hampton Town Code. The zoning district is A5, residence AE flood zone, elevation 6, and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
Yes, we do. Pursuant to section 255-923 of the Town of East Hampton Code, we have a certified mailing and posting that was both performed on October 27, 2022, 10 days prior to the public hearing.
Thank you. And this is member Savarise's.
Yes, it is.
So she'll do the report.
Before I get started, I just want to make a note that I went to the site on Saturday and followed each day, and there was not a posting outside the house, but that's not to assume it wasn't posted. It might have fallen down with the storm. I just want to bring that to, that. I think that's pretty much what. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Bishop. From the road, this is a picture of the front facade of the house. Next, Tyler. This is actually the fencing out in front. It's not relevant. I just must have hit the flicker. These are the 2 AC units that are in question. They're located on the southeast side. Next, please. This is the deck in question. It's actually behind the AC units, and it's probably roughly about 8 feet larger than what existed in 2015, according to the CO. Next, please. That is just a picture of the generator. We approved that months ago, and it's there. Next. This is a beautiful backyard that belongs to Mr. Bishop. I went through his path to the rear of the property, and this is the site that you see. It's very pretty. I had to take this picture. This is a statue I see every day. I drive by it. It's not have anything to do with this evening, but I had to take the picture.
And you did approve it in January.
This is the same photo that pretty much behind it, that wall I questioned, and I did talk to the planners about it, but that's actually an outdoor shower that existed before the fire. So it existed in, I believe, 2015. So it's not a new structure. Really, the one in question is this deck was brought a little bit more forward to the front yard, to the front of the house, and that's where the deck was extended. I think that might be it, Tyler. Oh, and this is the wetlands that are on the southeast side, right there. It's very close to the structures we're talking about. I think the next series of photos will be the same. Just copy pictures of the wetlands. I think that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Denise? No. And we have the applicant, Mr. Bishop. Come on up. Come to the podium. Yep. Announce yourself.
Great. I'm Kevin Bishop. I'm here with my partner Heather. We own the house at 21 Old
And
Stone
you're
Road.
not an attorney?
I'm not an attorney.
Raise your right hand. You swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do indeed.
Okay, go ahead.
Great. So as you just referred to, we had a fire 4 years ago. The house was rebuilt by Brian Mannix and his team. And then we did a series of yard work, which we came before you in January last year. You advised us that some of that was inappropriate. So after the meeting, we put it all back to how it was before, apart from the two items you approved, the sculpture and the generator. We then had Joe Palermo come to do the final site inspection with a view to getting our new CO issued. And he pointed out two issues. One issue was that the deck, which had been extended by this 27 square feet in July, which was approved by the ARB in July 2021 and approved by the building permit people in August 2021, didn't have a variance. And that's why we brought that to you today. Those applications were made by the builder rebuilding after the fire. Nobody pointed out to anybody of us, and we hadn't understood that we needed a variance for those. So that's why they were built. We had the ARB and the building permit approval. We didn't realize we needed a variance. If we had, we would have asked for it last January when we came with our yard variances. The other thing he pointed out was the air conditioning units had never been on the original survey from when we got our CO when we bought the house in 2015. And he said to be absolutely certain everything is dotted, please apply for a variance to make sure it's properly recorded that the two HVAC units are approved and appropriate for the house. So those are the two items we brought forward, and hopefully you'll rule appropriately for us on those, and we can finally get our CO and go back to living in the house. And as you saw, all the wetland is put back exactly how it was from the mistakes we made in our yard work.
So when you received your ARB approval, you took that resolution to the building department and they just issued you a building permit?
They did. Well, Brian Mannix did. At that point, I didn't know anything about these
But I mean, at
processes.
that
The builder
point, you
was
thought
doing
you were
it.
doing everything in accordance with what
Correct.
you were supposed to.
Exactly. So it was only when when Joe came to do the final inspection that he saw there was a gap in the paperwork.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Just the origin or the dating on the air conditioning units, they were there in 2015. Is that what you're saying?
They were, yes, we had two air conditioning units there in 2015 as well, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No,
Barry?
I have no question.
The deck was there, right? In 2015, it
Yes, the
just
deck
got
was there.
larger.
It wraps around the house. It came
Yeah.
past the outdoor shower, so you can access it from the bedroom that's on the ground
Right.
floor. We just brought it to be level with the front of the house, which is
And
about
that
8 foot.
gave it that extra 7 square feet.
Exactly.
Okay.
I just want to know what the name of your sculpture is.
Um, it was made by Phyllis Baker Hammond. She's just moved away from Springs Fireplace Road. We call it Phyllis because she made it. It's actually a maquette for what was going to be the sculpture on the top of the State House in Connecticut.
Oh, wow.
In the end, I think it was cast so heavy it never made it onto the top of the State House in Connecticut, so it's outside. The finished piece is 2 or 3 times the size of the one in our yard. And we became friendly with Phyllis and asked if we could buy it. And Mike Collins somehow managed to get it from her yard to our house on his tractor. So we call her Phyllis.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bishop.
You're welcome.
Tyler?
Evening board, Tyler Borsak for the planning department.
Tyler, do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So this application is fairly straightforward. The applicant was in front of the board a few months ago for some other work that's been done. Some of it was denied, some of it was approved. It's my understanding that the work that was denied is in the process of being removed, or was when the assessment was being written at the very least. That was in early 2022. The decision was rendered in May of this year. When the applicant went to apply for the certificate of occupancy, as was stated, there were some other issues that sort of cropped up. The AC units that were discussed, they existed in 2015, and that's important because that's when the last CO was issued. So it is believed that they're legally pre-existing non-conforming. But the building department, the planning department had discussions about it and felt that it was better just to include it on the approval so that it's sort of black and white and there's no issues later down the line on when they existed or not. That if the zoning board, issues an approval, then we have something in writing at the very least, that the AC units are allowed to remain. The wall didn't exist at that point in time, but the AC units did. The deck addition on the south side of the residence is roughly 27 square feet larger. I can bring up the 2015 certificate of occupancy so you can see the difference. It's a very small area, essentially from like where that bay window comes out and down, or southwest from there. The applicant had not applied for that at the time of the last application, which is why the board never discussed it. But it was picked up when they went for a certificate of occupancy. Overall, the subject property is severely encumbered with significant wetlands in an environmentally sensitive area, and any approval should be kept to the absolute minimum. The project is fairly minor, but the board should still be sure that the application meets the variance standards. And I'll bring up the CO, the last CO, so you can see what that looked like. So this is obviously the as built today. The 2015 CO is this. So the old deck ended here. So, this little square right here, as you can see right here, try to line them up, is roughly what's being requested today. Fairly minor. Other than that, I can answer any questions you might have.
Anybody have any questions for Tyler?
I do.
No, I have no questions.
No, thank you, Tyler. Anybody in the public want to speak? Matt, anybody on the phone?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, maybe Denise, would you like to
Okay.
make a motion?
In the matter of the application of Kevin Bishop, 21 Old Stone Highway in Springs, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-63-5-10, I make a motion that we close the public hearing and record.
Second.
Concur.
I concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. Thank you. Our next applicant is Jeffrey Feldkamp at 11 Bayberry Lane in Amagansett, Suffolk Tax Map Number 300-176-01-4. And again, the applicant is Jerry Feldkamp. The size and location is 12,494 square feet at 11 Bayberry Lane in Hampton Dunes, Lot 93, map number 4694 in Amagansett. The description is to reconstruct and modify approximately 1,250 square feet of existing decking and to allow pool equipment to remain within rear lot line setbacks and within jurisdiction of beach vegetation and freshwater wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town, and 3 variances are required for this application. 2 variances of approximately 71.6 feet and 29 feet are required from 255-430 of the Town Code in order to allow the pool decking to be constructed 28.4 feet and pool equipment to remain approximately 71 feet from freshwater wetlands where 100 feet setback is required. 1 variance of approximately 10.3 feet from 255-1110 is required to allow the pool equipment to remain 9.7 feet from the rear yard lot line setback where 20-foot setback is required, and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is B residence, AE flood zone, elevation 10, and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
We do. Pursuant to the Town of East Hampton Code, we have an affidavit of service that's dated November 2nd, 2022, which is 10 days prior to today's public hearing.
Thank you. Member McGivern.
So, this is a copy of a picture showing the posting and the front of the house. It's actually very deceptive because the entranceway is somewhat narrowed to just these 2 cars, but it expands nicely. Next. That's another picture of the front. That's really all you see from the road. Next. Now I'm walking around the house to the right of the house. And that's to the right of the house. And the decking, which you're going to see, is to the left. Now I'm in the backyard. And the benches that you saw face this AstroTurf deck. Next. It's more of the deck and the pool you see as a cover. And the vegetation goes right up to the deck. This is where the pool equipment was relocated, and on seeing it, it makes sense where they put it because the corner where they had it originally was closer to the neighbor. So this seems to be more accommodating to the neighbor. And that's sand behind it. Next. Just more sand. The deck. I think I'm standing on the deck now. Next. This is a perspective of the property from the other side. There's, can you go back to the picture before? In the distance, there's like a, almost a stone retaining wall, and then there's all this sand under that hanging hammock thing. Next. Now I'm standing on the sand looking at the yard. Next. Same thing. Next. That's the outdoor shower that wraps around on the other side, on the left side of the house. Next. I'm leaving the yard and going around the house. Next. That's the pathway next to the front door. But it's all screened, it's all vegetated, so you don't really see the front door or the side of the house that you just saw. Next.
That's it.
I think that's it, yeah. So Joel, is that an okay representation?
That was a beautiful representation. Thank you
How
very
you doing,
much.
Joel?
Good evening, Joel Halsey.
You swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
Again, good evening, board members. Joel Halsey of Lighthouse Land Planning on behalf of the property owner, Jeffrey Feldkamp, who for months has wanted to be at this meeting. However, the timing of this meeting coincided with the West Coast trip that he had, so he can't be here tonight. Please note that there is a slight error within the TAM with regard to the existing conditions. The existing conditions state that the pool is 926 square feet. The pool is actually only 512 square feet, with 926 square feet of decking. That said, the application, or prior to the necessity of this application, this project started out as a big non-issue to replace rotted deck boards. If anyone knows what it's like walking on or entertaining on a deck with rotten, sometimes dangerous deck boards, then you can sympathize. This part of the project can be done without a building permit, as it is a safety issue. Once the contractor removed the deck boards, what do you think was underneath? The deck framing that was well worn out to the point of rotting, soft wood, more dangerous than the boards on top. In addition, the deck framing was most likely not code compliant to today's construction standards. In other words, this frame was probably more dangerous than the rotten deck boards on top. So just replacing the deck boards would be a temporary and expensive Band-Aid to a well-used structure that could possibly fail. And this is where the non-issue becomes an issue when all is said and done, not a real issue in the scheme of things. Once you touch the structure of the deck, it becomes an alteration and or a reconstruction, which triggers a building permit, which in this case triggers a natural resource special permit. This is an unfortunate aspect of the town code, but this is not the forum to discuss that aspect. That said, the deck framing needed to be replaced, and for all intents and purposes, the framing of the deck is done at this time, save of some footings left to pour to solidify the deck. This all was finished prior to the stop work order. And as you can see from the pictures, the framing was covered at great expense with plywood and fake turf. This was the only work done after the stop work order was in place. During the installation of the new framing, there were a few small areas the property owner wanted to remedy within the deck layout. The layout of the deck was a bit odd. And as you can see from the most recent CO, which I believe was provided by the planning department, there was the corners of the deck, as you can see in that picture, were came in at an angle, essentially making the ends of the deck, the pool decking there at the ends of the pool, almost non-usable. These areas were squared off, which added a total of approximately 72 square feet to the deck area. I believe had this been requested prior to the replacement of the deck, this would have been a very modest request, and as stated in the technical analysis memo, the project does not appear to be a significant deviation from the existing conditions on the property. The pool equipment is a bit of a bigger request for relief, but one we feel is not unreasonable. The reasoning for the movement of the pool equipment was addressed by the property owner in a memo dated November 1st, in a memo submitted to the board on November 1st, 2022. In this case, the applicant has a very unique situation in which the grant of the variance can be differentiated from other applicants that seek a property line setback or setback variance for pool equipment. As the board knows, the double setbacks for pools, pool decking, and pool equipment was established to help prevent too much noise from disturbing neighboring properties. Although the initial location was conforming, the noise disturbed the neighbor. A few attempts to remedy the situation were done to the detriment of the subject property owner. Moving the pool equipment further from the neighbor and off the deck killed two birds with one stone. The problem was now that it was too close to the rear yard property line. What is unique in this situation is the rear yard does not abut a residential property, and there is no neighbor affected by the location of this pool equipment. The rear yard abuts open space reserved as part of the subdivision. There will be no person adversely affected by the location of this pool equipment, and the benefit to the applicant through the grant of this variance far outweighs any detriment, if any, that would be caused by the grant of the variance. The pool equipment is well concealed and bears no detriment to any residential property or the town. I believe the planning department had raised some concerns with regards to the vegetation. Prior to the current owners purchasing this property, and with many properties within this area, the vegetation had been considerably altered. As you can see by reviewing historic aerials of this area, it has probably not been an area of pristine dune vegetation for decades, and certainly not since the current owner purchased the property. Within the memo submitted on November 1st, 2022, there should have been a landscape appendix prepared by the property owner. As I was reviewing my submissions last night, it appears that this was inadvertently left out, and I would like to submit this appendix to the record.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd also like to read the appendix into the record. In the words of Jeffrey Feldkamp, since purchasing our home, we've worked with a longtime local landscaper to preserve as much of the existing vegetation as possible, while reducing overgrowth, invasive species, and attempting to create an order and aesthetic.
You're not going to read this whole thing into the record, are
You want me
you?
to skip it?
You just gave it to us.
Okay, then I'll skip
If you want to just recap it for us quickly, but not the whole thing.
basically, he's just stating he maintained the property as it was when he got it, removing invasive vines, removing invasive species, and just not really disturbing. There was what was there when he bought the property, and he just worked with what was there. So I'll leave that for the record. You guys can read it later before you go to bed tonight, please. So that all said, the appendix was prepared. The appendix was prepared by the property owner and is a detailed accounting of the existing conditions. Please note that much of the property had been landscaped prior to the current owner purchasing the property. The technical analysis memo suggests that a revegetation of the rear yard should be completed. As can be seen, the current property owner has only removed non-native and invasive species such as bamboo. This area in question is densely vegetated, which creates ample habitat for wildlife and beneficial buffer to the wetland, as can be seen, creates a visual screening between the neighboring properties. The removal of any of this vegetation would most likely cause more detriment than harm. None of the species listed in the appendix, other than the Russian olive, which I believe there's only one on the property, are invasive. The vegetation is compatible with the vegetation on the neighboring properties, and the current buffer of vegetation between the wetlands and the development is more than sufficient. To remove all of this to plant beach grass and bayberry could be more detrimental than beneficial. There are a few areas, as you can see from the pictures, that were kind of bare sand. The applicant would be willing to revegetate those areas with beach grass and maybe some bayberry to fill that out. Right now, he does kind of use that area as entertaining it or as open space, but he's more than willing to fill those areas in. Let me go quick then. In deciding whether to grant the area variance, the board needs to consider the following factors. Whether the grant of the variance will cause an undesirable change in the neighborhood. The requested variances for the small amount of decking is minimal, not a significant deviation from the existing conditions on the property. Regarding the pool equipment, I believe I have shown that request is unique in itself and is a benefit to the neighbor and the subject property owner. Furthermore, there is absolutely no detriment to the town in granting this variance. Whether the benefit sought can be sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method. The answer in this situation is yes. The applicant could keep the decking as it was and not require a variance for the small expansion. The question needs to be asked, does the small deck expansion pose a serious threat to the town? The additional deck area is less than 80 square feet in total, and it is in 2 different locations, so it's not very discernible change. The pool equipment could be moved to a conforming location. Had there been a viable reason to move the equipment, then moving the equipment would and should probably be required. I believe the equipment where it is located is a win-win location for both the property owner and the neighbor with no detriment to the town. Whether the requested variance is substantial. I'll stop there.
So I have a question.
Oh, sure.
I mean, you can argue that maybe there's some uniqueness to the rear yard setback for the pool equipment.
Correct.
But I don't know if there's an argument for uniqueness when it comes to the wetland setback, which is the unfortunate
I can give you
part of
uniqueness.
this location.
I can
right?
give you uniqueness. I mean, we've only moved it, I think, approximately 11 feet close to the wetlands, and where it was located before, it didn't conform to the wetland setback either. So it's essentially, it is slightly close to the wetland, but where it was located prior, it did not require a wetland setback.
Do we have a survey of it located where it was prior?
Sure, I believe it was about.
It's in the condition. Actually, it's in the home.
Yeah, it's this is where it was located before, and this is where it's located now, essentially.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
And now it's
for
here.
Joel? Anybody else have any questions?
No.
So, yeah, I mean, went from here to here.
Mm-hmm.
Joel, in terms of the deck, most of it pre-existed. There's a slight increase in size. And when you took the decking off and prepared to repair it, you feel that was within your legal right because it was repair for a dangerous situation.
The deck boards are within
The deck boards.
Yes.
But then when you went further and that the structure was removed, at that point, why did not that trigger a reaction either from the contractor or the client, or the owner, in this case, the applicant, to understand that was going to trigger a variance?
The owner, obviously, we're going to get the story from all the owners. They didn't know, but the contractor should have known.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so the contractor, at this point, though, is either his representative, it becomes his voice in this, and it was just missed, right? Is that what you're saying? It was missed, but nonetheless, it really required, this action. All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Joel?
This is an NRSP also, in
Right.
addition to the variances.
Yes.
so.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Tyler?
Evening again, Tyler Borsak for the planning department. So this parcel is located on the west side of Bayberry Lane in Amagansett. The project before the board is to reconstruct and modify swimming pool decking and to allow the pool equipment to remain in its current location. The project as proposed requires 3 variances, a wetland setback variance and a rear yard lot line variance for the pool equipment and a wetland setback variance for the pool decking. Overall, the project does not appear to be a significant deviation from the existing conditions on the property prior to work being done on replacing the decking. The proposed decking is very similar to what existed prior, aside from squaring off the decking around the pool itself. The closest point to wetlands appears to be relatively unchanged or changed only minimally. Overall, the size of the decking appears to be slightly larger, and most of that increase is on the north side of the swimming pool, where the pool equipment had been located prior to these changes. The impacts to the wetlands for these changes would be minimal, given the existing conditions and the small changes that did occur when construction was going on. The pool equipment also requires variances from the wetlands to the south, in addition to a variance from the rear yard lot line to the west. This property adjoins the town-owned reserved area, which was established as part of the original Hampton Dunes subdivision. Normally, swimming pools and associated structures require double accessory setbacks from side and rear yards in order to help protect neighboring parcels from the added noise that's associated with swimming pools. The board should discuss if they feel that the unique circumstance of the pool equipment variance request being taken from the reserved area is enough to justify granting the variance. The pool equipment was also relocated slightly closer to wetlands to the south, moved from a roughly 85 feet to a roughly 71 feet from the edge of wetlands. The additional impact from that relocation is minimal, but the applicant still needs to show how it meets the variance standards when there are other locations that meet a better setback. As mitigation for the project, the board should consider revegetating the rear of the lot, north, south, and west of the swimming pool. Revegetating this area with native duneland vegetation would help to reduce runoff towards the wetlands and also help to reestablish the native duneland characteristics, which occur elsewhere on this parcel, neighboring properties, and on the reserved area directly to the west. The gradual elimination of duneland vegetation changes the overall character of the neighborhood and reduces the quality of the wetlands within jurisdiction of the parcel. A well-vegetated buffer to the wetland and surrounding the existing structures helps to retain the character of the neighborhood, reduce runoff from the parcel, helps mitigate overall flooding, and can also help act as a screening for neighboring parcels. With the previous duneland vegetation being removed and replaced with ornamental vegetation, the loss of that duneland characteristic is significant. Other than that, I can answer any questions you might have.
Tyler, can you outline where you're thinking the re-veg to be?
Well, yeah, I mean, my thoughts were essentially just like around where the swimming pool, obviously focusing on to the south of the pool, which would be the buffer to the edge of wetlands, but around that pool, as is the CO that was issued showed vegetation right up to the edge of that. And that was back in 2010.
So the south of the pool, which is the other side of that retaining wall?
Exactly.
Is that, okay. And then,
And there's like a sandy area you saw in the picture
Right. That would be that area.
by the pool equipment.
that's that area right there.
Rear area was sandy.
That's where like the crepe myrtle is and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions for Tyler?
No.
Thank
you. Joel? So regarding the revegetation, you want to recap? Well,
Sure.
I mean, it
Joel
sounds like
Halsey.
you're trying to make a case that they've been stewards, and we understand that, but
Well, I don't want to say that they've necessarily been stewards. I'm just saying they were brought into a situation. This situation was there when they bought the property. So again, they bought the property. They got an updated CO when they bought the property. However, updated COs don't do anything with vegetation. So they pretty much thought everything that they had was legal on the property.
no, but I think it's a notable idea to seek a little bit more re-veg here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And again, we, as you can see, if we have these cleared areas, here's the existing clearing limits is the green line here. We would definitely be more than willing to fill in, actually, obviously, it's the deck there, these areas here. And again, that would be more of a buffer to the wetland there. There's a large patch of sand here, and down here, obviously we'd want a path to maintain, be able to access the backyard and access the pool equipment, but we'd be more than willing to fill in those areas with vegetation.
All right. How can we get a diagram that we can approve or discuss?
I guess it could be written within the determination prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Okay.
A revegetation plan shall be submitted.
Yeah, okay.
So Joel, with regard to the pool equipment, my only question is, since there are other locations available, how do you think this meets the standards for a variance?
I believe it meets the standards for the variance because the other locations, the standards for the variance for the neighboring property, one of the reasons why the pool equipment was moved was to try to maintain a better buffer between the neighbor who was complaining about the noise. So this was moved to help out a neighboring property. For one, how it meets the variance standards for the wetland. Again, we didn't, the existing equipment as it existed prior to the movement was within the 100 feet of the wetlands. The equipment as it exists today is 11 feet or 12 feet closer to the wetlands than as it existed. There is no real significant change in the location of the, it's not like we took a pool equipment that was 120 feet from the wetlands and moved it 80 feet from the wetlands.
Right.
We took pool equipment that was 86 feet from the wetlands and moved it 72 feet or, I'm just from the wetlands. So how it meets, there's no detriment to the neighboring properties or the town in general.
Thank you.
It's the location of the equipment does at a minimum meet the proper, does it meet the proper accessory structure setbacks for, it doesn't meet the double setbacks that's required for pool equipment, but at least it meets the accessory structure setbacks. And again, there's little to no detriment, caused by the location of this pool equipment to the wetlands. I believe that it's well buffered with vegetation. The vegetation is well south, is south of, and we'd be willing to fill in any area between the pool equipment and the wetland if there was any vacant areas in the back.
Okay.
And I'd be more than willing to meet Tyler on the site to, discuss, further vegetation if he wants.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
Anybody, any other questions?
No.
Thank you, Joe.
Have a good night, guys.
Joan, you want to make a motion?
Want this?
Oh, are there any callers?
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyone from?
Yes, anybody in the public?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Okay, nobody from the public here. Thank you.
In the matter of the application of Jeffrey Feldkamp at 11 Bayberry Lane, Amagansett, Suffolk County tax map number 300-176-0104. I move to close the public record in the hearing.
I concur.
I concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. Our next hearing is Capkey Dolphin Partners at LLC at 16 Dolphin Drive in Amagansett, Suffolk tax map number 300-131-5-11. The applicant is Capkey Dolphin Partners LLC. The size and location is 7,417 square feet of 16 Dolphin Lane, Montauk on the Sea, Section A, Lot 87, map number 2438 in Amagansett. The description is to demolish all existing structures and to construct a 2,121 square foot, 2-story residence outside of the town's pyramid regulations with second story and roof decking, walkways, new pervious driveway, AC units and utilities, a new IA system, sanitary system, and to clear approximately 936 square foot of vegetation on a parcel of land containing dune land and beach vegetation. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to section 255-420 of the East Hampton Town Code, and 2 variances are required for this application. 2 variances of approximately 2.25 feet are required from 255-1172D of the Town Code to allow the residence to be constructed outside the town's pyramid regulations approximately 2.25 feet along the eastern and western lot lines, and any other relief necessary. Zoning district is B residence, AE flood zone, elevation 9, and the C class is type 2. Council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
We do. Pursuant to the Town of East Hampton Code, we have a certified mailing and posting on October 2nd, 2022.
Thank you. Member McGivern, you're on again.
Tyler. Okay, I'm on Dolphin Ave now, or Dolphin Drive, excuse me, Dolphin Drive. And it was properly posted. And that's the one side of the house, existing house. And that's a close-up of the posting, I think, or that it's maybe the posting on Leeton next. Yeah, that's just showing you the corner. Next. That's the posting. No, that's looking down towards Montauk Highway. Excuse me. from the corner. And you get a sense of the vegetation. Next. And that's looking in the other direction towards the ocean. Next. That's the front of the house. Next. Now I'm walking around the house. Next. That's showing the decking and what's below the decking. There's a sort of storage cabinet in there. I thought it was an outdoor shower, but it's a storage cabinet. And you can see it's all sandy. Unlike their next door neighbor, which has a green lawn. Next. That's looking at the back of the house, and you can see it's all sandy. Next. It's another shot. Back of the house, which you can see is all sandy. Next. That's the corner of the back of the house. And next. That's just going around the house. There's a staircase. You're looking at the back of the staircase that goes up to the deck. Next. That's the side of the house. Next. That's going up the staircase, and you can see in the far right corner, their neighbor has a green lawn. Next. That's the view from the decking. Next. Just on the deck. Next. That's the side of the house. I think that's it. Is there more? Oh, just more vegetation. Next.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Thank you. Alice?
Good evening, board members. Alice Cooley of Matthews Kirsten Cooley here on behalf of Kapke Dolphin Partners. I'm also here with the property owners, Jennifer and Lauren Wimpheimer. And I'm also here with the project's architect, Bo Durham of Stella Lamont and Ronnie Architects. This is our second time on before the board. Our first hearing, as most of you will recall, was in February of this year, after which the board was split on our project with only 4 members present. And we requested that the board allow us to submit additional information, which the board allowed us to do, and have a rehearing, which brings us to tonight. This lot is constrained both physically and environmentally, as it is narrow and encumbered with 2 front yard setbacks. The proposed house is respectful of these constraints. It's long and narrow to meet those setbacks. The existing house is just 13 feet from the rear property line. We are proposing to eliminate that nonconformity completely, greatly reduce the pyramid nonconformity by more than half from 275 cubic feet to 130 cubic feet, and install a nitrogen reducing sanitary system. This property is actually in an AE10, not AE9 flood zone. And the purpose of this application is to construct a FEMA compliant house for use by my client's family. It's important to note that the purpose of FEMA compliance is to lessen the impact of a flood event on my clients and neighboring properties, which becomes increasingly important each year, as we've seen. Weather-related flood devastation affects everyone and not just those in the floodplain. I know that some of the board members struggled with this application previously because this is a constrained lot, but also recognize that this is a good application. It's hard not to push against the limits of a small lot and build a functional FEMA compliant house, but we listened to your concerns and have now reduced the lot coverage and GFA in our most recent submission. And very significantly, we managed to relocate the sanitary system to the north and west sides of the property, which reduced the proposed clearing, preserving the native vegetation and dune land on the east side of the property across from the town preserve. Since the prior hearing, we've also removed the path on the southeast corner, removed a bedroom, tightened up the footprint of the building, and reconfigured the exterior stairs. These changes resulted in a reduction in lot coverage from 1,484 square feet to 1,453 square feet. So there is no increase in proposed lot coverage from what's existing. A reduction in gross floor area from 2,299 square feet to 2,121 square feet, which is a small increase over the existing gross floor area of 1,787 square feet. A reduction in total lot coverage from 2,770 square feet to 2,466 square feet, which is a very small increase over the existing 2,264 square feet. And a significant reduction in clearing from 5,084 square feet to 4,686 square feet, and ultimately 3,890 square feet after revegetation. And I will note that if I may, this area is shown as not cleared right now, but you saw those pictures, that sandy area. That was not done by my client. That has been a sandy area. That will ultimately be revegetated. So after this revegetation, this will be a more vegetated lot.
And you can see the neighbor's green lawn.
As I stated at the last hearing, we've explored many alternatives for the site, including keeping the existing house while making it FEMA compliant. But it would not be possible to construct any new house and sanitary system or raise the existing house and construct the required sanitary system on the site without disturbing the same area we're currently proposing to disturb. We have support letters from the most impacted neighbor, Andrew Banzani, the owner of 88 Leeton, Johanna Elner of 87 Osprey, Susan Smidgel, owner of 48 Leeton, Mary Wallace, owner of 10 Dolphin, and we also have another 22 signatures from neighbors in support. While the board cannot be guided by community input alone, this level of neighbor support is resounding. I think anyone would be hard-pressed to redevelop a small lot such as this and come up with a more sensitive plan. And we ask that this application be approved in full. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, I mean, there was a lot of sand, so if you're going to revegetate, it would definitely be an improvement.
But I would also say that sand is also a part of the dunescape, right?
Yes.
So it's still part of the natural dunescape, but again, revegetating it would be desirable as well. I mean, that's the whole part of the character of this neighborhood is that meandering dunes between these cottages. So
It's a beautiful spot.
yeah, it really
Oh,
is
yeah.
spectacular. Anybody have any questions?
I have no questions.
No questions.
Fine.
I believe in your letter that we received, what to do with it? You said that you'd be willing to not put in the retaining wall, the 18-inch, and let it just be seen
Yeah,
as
so
natural from the eastern side of the house.
right here. That is a concrete retaining wall, but the purpose of which is kind of to reduce the massive look and sort of plain wall that you get when you do the breakaway walls for FEMA. I think Bo could probably speak more on this if you require further explanation. That's 375 square feet. It would be planted. It would add a lot of beauty, I think, to the site. But yes, ultimately, my client really wants to build this house for his family. He wants to live there. So he would be willing to give that up.
You think the retaining wall would add the beauty to the site?
Oh, certainly, because it's a very low retaining wall. It's 18 inches.
Yeah,
So it just
I
looks
know.
like a big planter, really. And they would plant native vegetation inside of that planter as well. But it does break up the sheer wall that you see on the face of a modern structure like this.
Any other questions?
No, I'm fine. I'm good.
Hey, Tyler?
Tyler Borzak for the planning department again. So I'll try not to go over too much of what was already discussed. So the application previously had been in for a 2,299 square foot two-story residence. Currently in there for 2,121 square foot two-story residence with accessory structures as well as that. The comments by the planning department during the last hearing still apply. The board should discuss the level of development on this parcel. Overall, the proposed construction should be a level of development that the board is comfortable with on other similar properties within this area. The Montauk-on-the-Sea subdivision is comprised of approximately 115 similarly sized parcels with dune land and beach vegetation, each of which could utilize development on this parcel to compare it to their own. The board should discuss this level of development and disturbance and decide if they feel that it's appropriate for this parcel. The Montauk-on-the-Sea subdivision is, on this parcel, the Montauk-on-the-Sea subdivision and the town as a whole. In comparison to the previous hearing, the current proposal has reduced the building coverage to the same as the existing conditions, reduced the total lot coverage by approximately 300 square feet, reduced gross floor area by 178 square feet, and reduced the area to be disturbed during construction by approximately 500 square feet. The board should discuss that if these changes are significant enough to approve the project as proposed. Other than that, I can answer any questions you might have, or if you need to see any of the drawings that they've submitted, I'm happy to bring those up as well.
Anybody have any questions for Tyler?
Only if you have any additional comment about their proposal to revegetate. Obviously, we think it's an advantage. We're going to be revegetating. They're going to be vegetating, adding vegetation over sandy area, and it was brought up by the.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. That's absolutely a benefit. It was vegetated at one point in time. It's hard to tell if it was cleared or if it was just disappeared. It never seemed to be a significant vegetation in there, at least from the aerials. It kind of looked sparse, so and maybe it just became sort of an area where people congregated, and it sort of went away over time. It's hard to tell, but certainly adding more vegetation is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I have no questions.
Oh, thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
Matt, is there anybody in the public that would like to address this application? Matt, anybody on the call?
I do have one caller holding.
Okay, you want to let that caller in?
Okay, unmuting. Last four digits, 9567.
Okay.
Hey,
Caller?
my name is John. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Jonathan Wallace. I am an attorney. I'm also the homeowner at 10 Dolphin, across Leiden to the north of the subject property. And I have a few quick observations to make. There has been an epidemic townwide of people increasing the sizes of houses quite close to the beach, despite the changes made to this application. It still involves an increase over the existing. That has come up in several recent town board meetings in which Mr. Van Scoyac, addressing it, has declared the intention of the town board to take a cut at this issue. He's indicated that the board appears to think that the pre-existing limitations in the code on size are probably too large and require a fresh look. So that itself, I would argue, would be a factor that ZBA should take into account and effectively, balancing this project to benefit the applicant versus the detriment to the neighborhood under Town Law 267B. I wouldn't rush this. I think we could all benefit by giving the town board some time to take a cut at it. Another thing that's new is that since you last held a hearing on this, the town did adopt CARP, the Coastal Resiliency Plan. That doesn't exist in a totally separate universe, but it's got to be taken into account. It discourages development and the destruction of dune vegetation. We live extremely close to the ocean here, and so I would say that before we rush into granting variances and permits on an issue that clearly is of importance to the town and is going to be taken up soon by the town board, we also consider taking a really hard look at how CARP influences what ZBA does. I actually don't know that you haven't done that. I'm just, as somebody who's not before you every week, speaking my mind here. The third issue is that the existing application really doesn't take into account what the impact of construction is going to be on the South Florida Nature Preserve right next door, whether there's going to be construction equipment that's proposed to be parked on the right of way, and there should be some attention to the effect on the nature preserve. Finally, I unfortunately don't feel that this applicant has, we've heard over and over again that he's planning to live here, but a internet search as his background and antecedents indicates that he lives in Atlanta and he's in the business of forming LLCs, buying a piece of property, rebuilding it, and flipping it. And some of those Georgia LLCs that he set up are now moldering away where, the company he works for is not paying the franchise tax, and the state of Georgia will eventually close them. So I think he's got a bigger curve to get over than most applicants when he says that it's his plan to live here personally. On top of that, this property has been listed on various sites for summer rental, and it is my belief, seeing different young people in different cars come and go over the summer, that it has in fact been rented. So I will tell you that my experience in this neighborhood, my house in 97, has been that when any of us ages out and sells, the person who purchases it, step one, if they're buying it in LLC, there's an application to the ZBA. I have personal experience of other neighbors, of purchasers insisting that they plan to live here and then not doing so. I think it's a very common thing. And again, I think in balancing the equities, in effect, which is what it seems to me you're doing under 267B, you need to take a really close look at whether the person who's asking you for variances really intends to stay or not. And this particular applicant needs to make a fairly significant showing to satisfy all of us. If I'm wrong about this, I will personally apologize to him, but we had the exact scenario at 2 Dolphin, where a very nice young Wall Street couple purchased it, told us they were planning to live here, and then were never here. And the first summer, the house, in fact, was a share illegal party house, and very noisy and very disturbing. That has been the trend. There are now 5 or 6 party houses in this neighborhood of 115 houses during the season, and the majority of those, in fact, are owned by LLCs. If you purchase a property in this neighborhood and dedicate it to rental, that's just inevitable that it's going to be a party house at some point. I did want to, because I filed some paperwork tonight that
we do have your submission. We do have your submission. It's a lengthy submission, so if you can wrap this up, we'd appreciate it.
I am done. I just wanted to say that the homeowner may very well like an opportunity to review it and respond to it, and I would appreciate an opportunity to file a short additional submission. So I am asking, with all due respect, that you consider holding this file open for a short period of time.
Okay, thank you.
How long do you
What are we
need?
holding it open for?
It's the applicant.
It's the public.
It's a public comment. Let's just separate it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm asking for 2 weeks.
Alice?
Thank you. I want to address the personal aspersions. I think they're inappropriate. Despite being an attorney in the state of New York, apparently Mr. Wallace is not aware that zoning is not personal. My client does intend to live here. He has a long history in this community, and what he said is offensive. But with regard to the project, we don't wish to wait any longer. We submitted this application in January of 2021. My client would like to move forward. We also submitted a very detailed construction protocol that does not include parking in a town reserve. You're not allowed to do that. So there is no sense that we're going to do that. We are committed to our construction protocol and really exceptional construction practices on site. Furthermore, there's no greater coastal resiliency for a house that is inland than FEMA compliance that's in the floodplain. So that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just want to recognize that public comment is that what it is. It's public comment. They're not part of we weigh that to its. We appreciate public comment, but in terms of, I recommend that we do. If there's no reason to accept further documentation from the applicant, I do recommend we close the record as well.
I agree.
I agree.
Yep. So in the matter of Capkey Dolphin Partners LLC, 16 Dolphin Drive, Amagansett, Suffolk County tax member, County tax map number, it's the second time I've done it, 300-131-0511. I move to close the hearing and the public record.
I'll second it.
I concur.
I concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. Thank you, Alice. Our next application is Cara Britton Bistry and Montauk Sunset Cottages LLC at 31 and 41 East Lake Drive in Montauk. Suffolk Tax Map Number 300-20-2-13.1 and 13.2. Again, the applicant is Cara Britton Bistry and Montauk Sunset Cottages. The size and location is 3.81 acres total at 31 and 41 East Lake Drive in Montauk. The description is to demolish all existing improvements and to reconstruct 10 resort buildings or cottages, relocating 4 of them, construct a new 6,737 square foot 2-story residence, 2 sanitary systems, a 16-foot by 56-foot swimming pool, accessory buildings, grass paver, parking stalls, and the establishment of a grass vehiculator path to the shoreline on a parcel of land containing tidal wetlands, coastal bluffs, beaches, and located within a town's jurisdiction of freshwater wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 and variances from 255-430, minimum wetland setbacks, and 255-440 coastal setbacks of the town code. Bluff crest setbacks variances of 37 feet and 41.5 feet are required to allow combined cottages 2, 4, and 5, and its associated decking to be located 63 feet and 58.5 feet respectively from the coastal bluff crest where a 100-foot setback is required. The same building requires wetland setback variances of 25-foot and 30-foot for this cottage and deck to be located 75 feet and 70 feet respectively from tidal wetlands where a 100-foot setback is required. Cottage 12 also requires a 5-foot wetland setback variance to reduce the freshwater wetland setback of the deck from 37 feet to approximately 32 feet from wetlands. The zoning district is A residence, VE, elevation TED, velocity, and X flood zones, and the secret class is unlisted. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
So, pursuant to 255-923, service was completed on November 3rd, 2022, for posting and certified mailing. However, upon review of the affidavit of service, we did notice that one of the parties was not serviced, which was at 40 East Lake Drive. I reached out to the applicant. They're aware. The posting was up. They asked if we would be willing to proceed with the hearing. They have contacted the person at 40 East Lake Drive. They know that they are on a plane back from Ireland. So in the past, the zoning board has allowed time for the hearing to remain open in order for that individual, if they would like to, write a submission if possible. As we are backed up and for the flow, when I did talk to Chairman Delaney about this, we did agree that in the interest of time and in the best interest of service here, that we would allow the hearing to go on tonight with it leaving it open for the one individual to contact, unless you got a waiver. Did you get the waiver?
You did not.
Okay. All right. He is the neighbor that's located directly across from the property, and there was a posting on the property as well.
Okay, they've been notified or they will be notified, I'm sure.
And notified informally by email, and we'll have to send them the formal notice.
Oh, so
And that formal notice will go out when?
I'll
So we'll leave the record.
Until you swear me in, right?
Hi, Britton. Do you
Hi.
swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Just to comment on that one matter, funny enough, small town, there are 2 Sean Murphys. I contacted Sean Murphy from Sag Harbor, his office. He was on a plane back from Ireland. The Sean Murphy that I eventually tracked down, thanks to Andy Hammer, who lives on East Lake Drive. I spoke with him just before the hearing at 6 p.m. and I explained to him, walked him through the narrative. I said, listen, you're going to be getting a certified mailing from me. He's a contractor. He's very well aware of the property. They live there year round. He said, I saw the posting, and I sent him the survey and the public notice, and I'll follow up via mail tomorrow. So he's aware of it. And I had told him he could call in and comment, which he may or may not. He didn't seem to have any comments to me, but I will go through the full
Right. So to be fair, I think the time frame to leave the record open for that would be, we're
3
saying
weeks.
2 weeks?
2 weeks?
Right. Right, I think that
I
would
think
be
that's fair.
appropriate.
Yeah.
All right, but we
will
can address
get
that
a-
at the end of a hearing, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
And we'll get the notice back, so we know.
Correct, yeah. that's
Give him an
correct.
opportunity to respond to anything if he wishes
All
to.
right, I recommend that we continue. Is the board okay with continuing this? And I think, myself,
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from this hearing at this time.
thank you. Okay, we have.
Me.
Member
And for now, I'm not coughing.
Member
So let's
Berger,
do
you want to
this.
go?
Okay.
Quickly.
This was the official notice of posting. It was properly posted. Now I'm going to take a walk around the whole property. The cottages are not numerically in order on the property, so we're going to see them all. And I hope I remember which ones are which as we do this. So next, Brian. This is a shot of the two homes directly across the street from the applicant's property. Next. Now, this is the usual shot down East Lake Drive. This is to the south, I believe it took first, and then next would be a shot up toward the north. And next, that's my car park there. Behind all that shrubbery is where the existing home is today, which is, the home itself is not in jurisdiction for this board. But it's just to place it. There's some property, items in front of it. Next. That was just a nice view of Lake Montauk, showing toward the water. Next. Now, from where my car was, I just turned to the right, and this is the cottages that are labeled on the survey as 8 and 9. Actually, on the latest survey we got, the 8 was missing, so I had trouble finding that, but it's noted on the structure itself. Next. I believe this was a shot of cottage number 1, which is one of the cottages that does need a variance for bluff crest setbacks. And we'll see more of that later. Next. This is cottage number 14, which is toward the east from cottage 1. And that is, that's one that's be renovated in kind. Next. That one in the distance there is cottage number 3. And you just see nice, nice lawn and shrubbery and things around. And I'm going to walk, I'm not sure where I'm going to walk first. What's next? This is a closer view of cottage 3. And then in the background there, which you'll see more of also, is cottage number 2, which is one of the ones that's the proposal is that cottage is proposed to be merged with 2 to the north of it, which we will also see. Next. Now this is a shot from the deck of cottage 3, again, just to show you the vista, and it does slope down beyond that shrubbery down to the shoreline. Next. This is a shot of, I think this is cottage 2 again, a closer shot of cottage 2. Next. I believe that's, might be cottage 2 also. Yeah, I believe it is. It's just from a little further from the west and directly shot toward it. Next. Where's that truck? I believe this is cottage 4 and 5. Brian, give me, yeah, you could see the power pole behind there that has some things growing up it. That's pretty much near the property line. So that's the cottages 4 and 5, which are proposed to be merged in with cottage number 2. So they are part of the ones that require the variances. They're actually moving farther away from the wetlands, which are to the north. And they'll be coming down south and merged into number 2. Next. That's just a distant shot of all 3 of those cottages. On the right, again, it's cottages 4 and 5, and on the left, it's cottage 2. Next. Now, this, I believe, is cottage 12. which is also, requires a variance. This one is actually moving, I believe the variance, there's a small variance for the, I think the decking's being relocated. I'm not sure if I remember that correctly or not. And so that there is a variance required for that cottage. Next. So that I believe is cottage number 12, but also cottage 11 now, which is next to it toward the east. And next. Okay, actually, the one before it might have been 11 and 10. And this, I believe, is also 10. I took that, this is one where there are a number of them where there's slate patios now and they're going to be converted to decks. And I believe that's number 10. Next. That is number 10, and that's the shot
slate
of the
patio.
Thank you. Very good, John. Okay, next. And this, I believe, is number 7. Same kind of scenario. Next. Oh, now this is generally between, in the center of all that, between 7 and I guess 3. That was just a shot of the entire vista heading for looking from south to north of the property. It's very pretty. Yeah. Next. Okay, now this is a shot. I was back at the house and I took a shot to the left, because there is also, as part of the project, to create a vehicle path, and that's in the other direction. This is to the south now, and I'm going to walk around that whole thing also. This is one of the structures that is going to be removed and replaced with something, but not in scope for us. Next. And that's the other, there are 2 structures in that condition, and that you could see there was a road at one point and it's in disrepair. You see that in front of there, the pavement. I'm going to walk along that road down to the shore. Next. And that's some more of it. And you can see the property marker there to the left. If you recall, this is immediately north of the Kes. Was it Kes?
Is that
Kes property
gravel
that
or
we had
dirt
approved a
or-
while back. What?
Gravel or dirt or?
It was asphalt and it's in disrepair. It was some asphalt and gravel. It's proposed, I believe, to become a gravel drive for vehicles. Next. And that's some more of it. I just keep walking down toward the west, which will end up down by the lake. Next. And I'm down by the lake. This is a shot of the beachy area there, and then you can see the dock, the bulkhead rather, the dock that is in the distance. Now, there was at one time that it was in the proposal for this application, but I believe that part has been removed from this particular application at this time. Next. And this is the rock revetments that go out from that shore also on the south side of that. Next. Now I'm just going to walk back up, and you can see the grading difference on the path, and I just followed the path back up to the top. Next.
That's it?
No, there's,
Oh,
well, now this is the existing house that you didn't get a good view of before, and there's, I think, 1 or 2 more. Next. Oh, this is another shot of cottage 1. I noticed when I got to that side of it that it is in disrepair. You can see there's plastic covering the windows now. And I just took another shot of that. Next. And this is the expanse in front of the existing house where it's proposed for a pool and I think that's it, Brian.
Thank you. Britton, you're already sworn in.
Good evening, Chairman Deline and members of the board. Britton Bistrian representing Montauk Sunset Cottages LLC. I'm joined here this evening with the land use attorney, Tiffany Scarlato, as well as representatives from AML Architecture who designed the project. As seen in the field report, this is a proposed revitalization of a 3.8 acre parcel on the east side of Lake Montauk. You can see East Lake Drive runs on the east side and Lake Montauk on the west. It's bordered on the north by East Hampton Town Preserve, and on the south by a project which the board's seen recently under the name KES LLC. This property was known as the Bridgeford Cottages. It was in operating in existence since about 1950. It was a retreat for water activities such as boating and water skiing when it was first invented. There are 11 buildings containing 13 units, a single family residence, and a couple dilapidated accessory structures, which appeared to be sort of warehouse boat related buildings, but they're in severe disrepair. Our clients purchased this in 2017. It's unique in the sense that it is residentially zoned. At the northern half of the property, this was once two parcels as still shown on the Suffolk County tax map. The northern parcel has all the cottage units except for number 1, and the southern portion of the parcel has the residence and those other accessory structures. The initial project intent when we started 5 years ago at this point was to reconstruct all the cottages in place in kind, to remove the existing residence and construct a new residence and its associated accessory structures. The reconstruction of the single family residence, just to note, this is a pretty large parcel. It's 36% of what the East Hampton Town Code GFA would allow. We are allowed an 18,137 square foot house on this property. In a few reviews in front of the planning board, it was requested that 3 of the units, the northern parcel that I pointed out as the town of East Hampton, that's sort of a, Brian can correct me if the terminology is wrong, but it's some sort of dreen, it's some sort of freshwater wetland. We have a band of cottages that are along that northern border, and the planning board said, under Brian's guide, if you could move those cottages and get a greater separation to that northern wetland, even if it precipitated needing variances, even though we're getting further away, we still don't meet the town code, that would be a successful environmental success. So the owner was in support of that. We redesigned. When we started to look at what that looked like, one of the cottages, there's this really remarkable maple tree. It was in one of the slides, and the owner's really attached to that tree. So we actually are attaching one of the double unit cottages to an existing single unit cottage. So compacting 2 buildings into one footprint. And that's basically to save that tree and to get that wetland setback. The owners have been incredibly open and sensitive to the environmental integrity of the parcel. They've gone to great lengths to partner with Cornell Cooperative Extension of Suffolk County to use the bottomlands in front of this parcel to create a spat-on-shell oyster reef pilot project. It was just recently approved by the town board and supported by the town board earlier this month. That was all their initiative. They've also integrated green technology, have not introduced any commercial elements to the resort units, such as poured concrete walkways or extensive site lighting, as you may see in other, resort units in motels across Montauk. They really wanted to revitalize, restore the retreat aspect of this parcel, which was the original attraction to it 70 plus years ago. As noted in the revegetation plan prepared by Summer Hills, we've proposed extensive revegetation, which in the technical analysis memo was referred to as exemplary. There was a request to increase the perimeter planning with additional woody plants to further delineate the difference between the cleared and the uncleared areas. We're happy to integrate this as a condition of approval. All the conditions in the technical analysis memo are acceptable to the client and will be integrated into the project scope. One project aspect that I'd really like to highlight is the remarkable septic improvements that come with the restoration of this property. Currently, there are 13 septic systems on the parcel, and I put quotes around them because I use that term loosely. I was privileged to be there when we did the on-site inspections, and I'm being cheeky there. But the original parcel was prior to the invention of a septic tank. So the septic tanks or septic systems on here range from 50-gallon drums that have holes punched in them to block and brick cesspools. There is not one single septic tank on this parcel serving the 14 structures. We are proposing to replace those with a hookup to public water Right now, the property gets a waiver on a yearly basis because it still has a well, which is prohibited by Suffolk County. We're bringing in public water and we're integrating 2 state-of-the-art IA on-site wastewater treatment systems. This will have an incredible impact on the water quality in the south end of Lake Montauk, which this board knows has been plagued with bacterial and nitrogen loading issues for many years. In summation, this project proposes little additional development, and what is proposed is all beyond NRSP jurisdiction. I'm not really going to touch on them because they're not part of the board's purview. There's a handful of strong letters in the support of this project in the file. And as of me walking into this room, I did not see one letter against the project. It's in keeping with the integrity of the property. Its historic use will be an improvement for not only the neighborhood, but also the precious resource of Lake Montauk. After 4 years of studying how to best restore this parcel, we believe the project in front of you exceeds all measures of environmental improvement. And other than that, either Tiffany or myself or AML are ready to answer any questions from the board.
Can we just concentrate a little bit on the grass vehicular path to the shoreline?
Yes,
Maybe we can
currently
bring
there-
up a diagram. It's kind of hard to see on anything we have.
Currently, there is an asphalt road that runs from, I have a time limit?
You're in question area. You're safe.
Currently, there's an asphalt road that runs from basically where that property line is in the middle of the parcel. It runs directly south and then it turns towards the lake and goes down to the beach. That was for launching of motorcraft and various, they had water skiing jumps out front. So they had a lot of jumps and things like that they brought down on that path down to the beach and left boats there. We are proposing to remove all the asphalt, restore it with an environmentally appropriate substance material, like a marl base and a local quartz gravel top. And then once you get to the end of the structures, if you could pull up the survey, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, what's the date of the latest survey too? Good. October,
We received October 4th is what I have.
The end of September.
right?
No, 2022.
It's last revised September 2022. Is
That's
that right?
correct.
Is that what you have?
Yeah, I'm looking for the latest revised date. We received it October 4th.
Yeah, but
Yes.
What is it, last?
it was
re-
last
think it's,
revised September
where'd it go?
2022.
Yeah, September 2022.
So an asphalt road comes in here, goes along the east side of the residence and goes by all of the accessory structures that are out of jurisdiction and will terminate here. Currently, it goes all the way down to the lake. At this point, it just becomes,
So you're terminating it basically where the Kes property begins? Is roughly from what you said, it's not going to run all the way down to
20 feet from the southern property line of our parcel. Just to service those accessory structures and to construct them and maintain them.
Any questions?
Is the pool within NRSP territory for this? It is. isn't
Yes.
It is in,
It
it
is,
is.
yeah,
The pool
okay,
is,
all right.
and those cottages are.
Some of the cottages are. Well, it's-
Above,
it's,
right, some of the
mostly, yeah,
cottages.
A lot of them, yeah.
I know the planning department would like to address the groins. And I understand you pulled it from the application. You just want to talk about your thinking there.
Sure. It was originally part of the project scope to do the coastal work. And it was a decision it was a pretty significant undertaking, both in engineering, financially. A lot of these units are on their last legs. So the client's desire was to move forward with beginning construction on the structures and come back with a separate application that can really hone in on just that area. It's a lot. This is a pretty extensive project, and it just seemed to be better to segment the two processes because one doesn't really necessarily relate to the other.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Thank you. Brian?
But I want a permanent pass to the pool. I want a permanent pass to the pool.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. Brian Frank on behalf of the Planning Department.
Brian, do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm going to leave the survey up for now. I really, there's a lot of information on there, and I don't know how much it really, pops on the screen where you're sitting, and that's why I had the aerial up there before. But there is some important information on the survey, and I'll approach the screen shortly. So the property is in a residential zoning district, and there is a residence on the property. So the existing residents, as well as the proposed residents, are conforming uses to the zone. The cottages that we've been referring to for convenience sakes are most properly defined as resort units in the code. They have kitchens, so they're not transient motels. They're resort units. But it's a lot easier to just refer to them as cottages. Those cottages are non-conforming in a residential zone. Non-conforming structures are allowed to be maintained or even replaced in a residential zone. And that's what this application proposes, as long as that non-conformity is not being increased at all. And so far, there isn't any indication that there is an increase in non-conformity. The planning board has been looking at this on and off for close to 3 years now. That's where some of the project has evolved from. And there are a couple of different wetlands on the property. There is a seasonal freshwater stream that runs basically parallel to the northern property line. That there's a lot of places where fresh water from the wetlands on the east side of East Lake Drive are culverted beneath East Lake Drive, and they continue to flow into the lake. And this is an example of one of that. So the property to the north is owned by the town. There's a cleared but unimproved path that provides some limited public access to Lake Montauk. There's really not a great place to park there, but it is owned by the town. And you can see the wetland boundary on the survey here. This pink line is the freshwater wetland boundary. It flows into the lake. And then the pink boundary along the shoreline is more of a tidal wetland boundary. So the aspects of this redevelopment that are in natural resources jurisdiction are those areas that are either within 150 feet of either the freshwater or tidal wetlands. Several of the cottages are very close to the northern property line. The arrangement of the cottages are somewhat eclectic, almost random, some might describe. And the applicant was open to relocating the structures closest to the northern property line to improve the wetland setback. So I'm going to approach the screen again. These are the buildings. I apologize if this looks silly because you can't see it from there, then tell me and I'll just go back. But these are the three buildings that are being moved. These cottages 11 and 12, are basically being moved farther south to increase the wetland setback to the north. There's a deck on the south side of cottage 12, as Member Berger noted, and that's going to be reoriented on the water side. Technically, that's a new structure, and therefore it needs wetland setback variances. This building, it's one building, but it's two resort units in it. So it's been described as cottages 4 and 5, and that's going to be attached to cottage 2 a little bit farther south on the property. Those setbacks are nominally changing a couple of feet closer to the shoreline, and that's why they need a variance. Both the planning department and the planning board, I believe, are satisfied with those setbacks. The planning department doesn't have any objection to them. I don't know if you could see it on the survey, but there are 2 sanitary systems that are proposed for the property. The main one is in the central portion of the property, and that's going to be that's going to be connected to the residence and all but the pool house that's proposed in the southeast corner of the property. There's a smaller sanitary system for that. Both of those systems have been positioned to be 200 feet away from the wetlands. At least the leaching portions have. and are therefore out of natural resources jurisdiction. As Britton had mentioned, the revegetation plan proposed along the northern property boundary is exemplary. It's a diverse and robust and densely planted area of shrubs that are native to the Montauk wetlands or moorland areas, and seem really well suited to the environmental conditions on the property. The planning department doesn't necessarily have an objection to the revegetation and the balance of the portion of the property, but it is a little bit more landscape than revegetation. It's understandable that you would want some transition from the woody vegetation down to the native grasses and then to the lawn, but based on experience, it's a lot more practical if there's a little bit more of a distinct demarcation between areas that are revegetated and areas that are landscaping. It's just easier to kind of differentiate what's being naturalized and what's being maintained as yard or landscaping. That portion is still obviously the planning board has taken this application pretty much as far as they can without them getting the natural resources special permit. And like a lot of applications that involve both boards, at some point they need to get their the relief they need from the zoning board before they can pursue and close things out, for lack of a better word, with the planning board. So I don't know if it's something. I don't know that a detailed revegetation for the zoning board right now kind of ties things up a little bit. Then they have to come back for a modification. That's the kind of stuff that we'd like to avoid. If the applicant is willing to augment the revegetation along the shoreline, maybe the board just wants to affirm that in their decision rather than approve a revegetation plan now that has, at least in my opinion, a reasonable chance of being changed by the planning board before this gets to its final approval.
But we could condition it on planning department approving it.
You can do that after the fact, yes. Yeah, true. The application did originally propose reconstructing the coastal structures. This is a timber groin. The reconstruction of groins are prohibited everywhere in town except where when they're associated with a navigable inlet. I could move the survey, but there's a bulkhead in the southern portion of the property. This property is in coastal erosion zone 2. The bulkhead doesn't really serve any protective function for the improvements behind it. And it is dilapidated. I have photos of it. I know you have a busy agenda, so I'm not going to bring them up now, but they're basically, it appears to be stacked railroad ties from, a long gone age. I could understand the perspective that there's a lot going on the property, but I think that almost supports doing this now while there's a lot going on the property. You're building a nearly 7,000 square foot house, rebuilding multiple structures, installing parking commensurate with the number of units on the property. Most of that is out of natural resources jurisdiction. And I would respectfully offer that this is the best time to get in there and remove those structures. It would be a benefit to the lake. It would certainly be an improvement to the safety hazard that failing bulkhead represents right now. And it would be an aesthetic improvement, although what's there now is legally pre-existing. They're not creating a new aesthetic impact by allowing them to remain. There's not necessarily a nexus that would warrant requiring the removal of those structures, but I do think it's appropriate to be strongly on record that removing them is the right thing to do. It's what there really isn't a path forward for reconstructing them that I see. And with the amount of work going on the property, it seems that before the property, when everything else is brand new, to have these derelict and failing structures remain on the property just seems contradictory to everything else going on there. So I just wanted to share that with the board. Lastly, I do believe the gravel on the driveway, I am going to move this down a little bit. I do believe the gravel ends where it's shown there, but I believe the grass path is proposed to continue back down to the water in a similar footprint to where the aging asphalt is now. In a residential zone, we don't really have too many vehicular launches for light watercraft, and the purpose of this access has been proposed for the use of kayaks, paddle boards, maybe small sunfishes, but small non-motorized watercraft generally don't need structural improvements to get down to the shoreline, and it seems unnecessary. I don't know how often you would see it or approve it in a residential zone, and that's what this property is. And I just want to put that out there for the board's consideration.
Because of the 6-foot width proposed?
Yeah, I mean, it's a unique variance request, right? So the variance requested has to do with a width variance based on access, or?
Well, the grass path doesn't need a variance. It needs a natural resources special permit.
Okay.
Similarly, the cottage one, it was mentioned before, that doesn't need a variance either. All of the structures that are being reconstructed in place in kind are reconstructions and don't need variances. The variances are being triggered by the structures that are moving from where they are now. Right. And we discussed that already.
Okay, so cottage one does not need a variance, as I thought. I think I said that, but it does not.
Yeah, but there's a lot going on. You did a great job keeping track of them all. I still have a problem with it. I think that was, I do want to confirm there was a proposal for a geothermal well field that was proposed southwest of the swimming pool, closer to the shoreline. My understanding is that that element of the proposal has also been eliminated. That would be activity that would be in natural resources jurisdiction, and the hearing is an opportunity to confirm that or clarify it if that's what's most appropriate. Beyond that, if any members have any questions that I could answer, I'll do my best.
Good. Anybody have any questions for Brian?
No, it's a lot to keep track of. The pavilion is also within NRSP territory, correct? And the pool equipment?
No, these structures here are not within NRSP jurisdiction.
Well, the pavilion, though, it says it's 103 feet.
Well, wait a minute.
Yeah,
that's, that one. That's not from a wetland line. I don't know what.
Oh, is that?
Yeah,
what's that red line? Okay,
I'd have to take a look at that. I'm not sure what that's measuring to, but that solid red line, I think, is.
Wait, it's at the top of the survey. Hang on, I'm getting to it. It's the limit of, that's the limit of DEC Article 25 jurisdiction line.
Okay. A DEC jurisdictional feature.
Good. Any other questions?
No.
Thank you, Brian. Oh, do we have anybody in the public to address this? Matt, anybody on phone?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys want to come up? How are you, Tiffany?
Very well. Good evening, board. Tiffany Scarlato, 45 Division Street, Sag Harbor, for the applicant, and I'll just respond to a couple of comments. First, just to be clear, the geothermal was eliminated from the project quite a ways back. The second deals with the asphalt roadway that currently exists. The asphalt road is currently covered by a CO that was issued in 2019. Our proposal is to remove the asphalt, or 75, more than 7, or the entirety of the asphalt, sorry. And it's going to be redone only to be only to the point of the buildings. And then from there forward, it will be a grass pathway to the water. So there's no proposed improvement past the point of the existing buildings.
The maintenance of that grass pathway to the water, I mean, is it going to be fertilized and stuff like that, adding nitrogen to the water? Or is there anything we need to be concerned about that?
The applicant is really has no intention, based on the revegetation plan, has no intention of using fertilizer on the property. So, I don't believe that it's intended to be fertilized. I'm sure that it will be maintained by being mowed so that they're still able to utilize it. But I don't think there's any intention to fertilize it and make it pretty and green. It's going to be a usable roadway to the water. I think they also intend to use it to put kayaks in the water and small boats and whatever else. The last thing that I'd like to address is just the coastal structures. We haven't been in front of this board with regard to that, but I will note for the record that there is a letter in the planning board's file with regard to the lack of nexus between the coastal structures and the application before both the planning board and the zoning board. We did remove those from the project and wish to continue without it.
But you will be addressing them at some point in the future?
They would like to address them at some point. We do obviously have a disagreement as to whether a navigable channel exists there. And I think that's where we're going to hit a struggle on the next round. But that's, as I said, that's why they decided to take the two apart, because one was going to take far longer and require far more analysis than the other.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, just a question.
Certainly.
You said that, well, the chair asked about pesticides and that. There's a letter here we have from Edwina Von Gaal. Is she Summerhill Landscape?
No.
She's not Summerhill
No,
Landscaping.
okay.
She's
consulting
a
on the
landscape architect that is all about natural.
Right, yeah, no, I know who she is. I didn't, but we have a plan from
landscape.
Summerhill. So
Right, she
she's
is
not-
consulting on the
she's
project with the
consulting
owner,
with
so
them.
her input
Okay.
is in that
Yeah.
planting.
She does
plan that
say
you
no
see.
pesticides in
Exactly.
in her letter.
Exactly the plan.
Thank you. I believe we can close this out. Terry?
Okay.
You have it?
Page of the damn, I got it. So for the application of Montauk Sunset Cottages at 31 East Lake Drive in Montauk, tax map 300-020-02-13.1 and 13.2. I make a motion to close the public hearing and the public record.
A second.
I concur as well.
Yes,
it?
there were no callers.
Yeah, there was
were
nobody,
callers?
there was no
Okay,
callers.
I didn't hear him say that. Okay.
Thank you. Our next hearing is a hearing that I am recused from, so I'm going to ask my vice chair to come in and head that, and I'll step out. Thank you.
Chairs here.
It is closed so far. No. Oh, wait a minute. What? Were we going to leave the record open for 2 weeks? Wait a minute, I'm
Oh, yes,
confused
we
again
do.
because of
We
the
do need to leave
notice.
the record
Oh,
open.
wait, don't
Wait,
go away.
wait, come back.
Roy.
Roy.
That was a good catch.
Good
Good
catch.
catch, Terry. We were, because of the notice to the neighbor across the street, we were going to keep this open for 2 weeks. So I guess I should reopen the record now and then,
Oh, that's a good point.
okay. So I will make a motion to open the public record for Montauk Sunset Cottages at 31 East Lake Drive, tax map 300-020-02-13.1, 13.2.
Second.
Concur.
Concur.
And I make a motion to leave the written record for Montauk Sunset Cottages at 31 East Lake Drive in Montauk, tax map number 300-020-02-13.1, 13.2, to leave the written record open for 2 weeks from today.
Second.
Concur.
Concur.
Thank you.
There you go.
Record open for 2 weeks.
Tyler, leave
Yes.
you with my pictures?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, the next item on our agenda for this evening is, excuse me, Bruce Bistrian of 45 Private Road, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map, number 300-110-02-12.16. The size and location is 24,609 square feet at 45 Napeak Harbor Road, Amagansett. The description is to allow the as-built conditions associated with an approximately 2,114 square foot 1- and 2-story residence with first and second floor decking, sanitary system, and driveway on a parcel of land containing tidal and freshwater wetlands, duneland, and beach vegetation. Relief sought to allow the as-built measurements to allow the as-built increases of 595 square feet and 901 square feet of the total coverage and clearing respectively for an approximately 2,114 square foot 1 and 2 story residence with first and second floor decking, sanitary systems and driveway on a parcel of land containing tidal and freshwater wetlands, dune land and beach vegetation, and relief pursuant to 255-4-20A3 to allow the as-built driveway to encroach by approximately 4 linear feet into the delineated wetlands. The zoning district is A2, residence AE flood zone, elevation 10. The secret class is type 2. Council, do we have a proper record of service and posting?
So we do have a proper service. This property is a little unique as pursuant to 255-923, it falls within the exceptions. The surrounding properties are owned either by the applicant themselves or the town of East Hampton. I believe it was Suffolk County was the other parcel that was next to it, or the state of New York. So regardless, those are exceptions. So no certified mailing had to be done on this property because of that. However, the posting was completed on November 3rd, 2022, which is at least 10 days before the hearing.
Okay, thank you. Are we going back to Joan for this?
Yes.
Busy night for Joan.
First picture is showing that the property was properly posted. That is the driveway sign. The beginning of the driveway. That's looking down the driveway. Oh, next, sorry. That's the driveway and the house in the distance. That is vegetation I probably didn't mean to take a picture of. Or maybe I did. That's the house. It's a lovely house. You can see the turnaround to the right. Next, I think I took the turnaround. And you can see there's sort of, was mentioned in the TAM or one of the things from the building department. There's some settling and gulling of water to the right. Next. That's from the deck looking down the driveway. Next. That's the other side of the turnaround and the side of the house. Next. It's more of the side of the house, sorry. Next. That's just some of the landscape you see. Next. Oh, that's the one this is the turnaround with sort of water rutting on the right. Next. That's a close-up of the water rutting. I guess go into the wetlands. Next. That's another picture of the side of the house. Next. That's under the deck on the first floor. Next. That's just a picture of what you see from the deck. I mean, it's beautiful. Acres of wetlands. Next. More wetlands. Next. That's going back down the driveway. It's a long driveway, I have to say. Next.
That's the last one.
That's the last one? Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Joan. We have representative here, Britton. Britton, you've already been sworn in or not?
I have.
Thank you.
Good evening again, Vice Chairman Johan, members of the board. I'm Britton Bistrian, representing my favorite clients of all time, my parents. Bruce and Eleanor Bistrians, owners of the property at 45 Napeag Harbor Road, recently readdressed by the tax assessor's office to be 45 Private Road. I don't feel the need to go into too much detail about the proposal in front of you, as I've been at this podium in the last 6 weeks twice prior to this evening on the same exact request. The record on this matter is pretty abounding. The legacy of this family's preservation and environmental stewardship is limitless. The application was filed over 7 years ago, and I'm here today asking the board to approve the project for a certificate of occupancy for the as-built conditions. The parcel was an incredibly constrained one, as seen especially in this aerial. And I hope the board had, I had invited you all to come visit. I hope that you did make a visit to the site. And because I think it speaks volumes to how it's very difficult to navigate around the house without that turnaround. It was impossible. And that's what precipitated it during the course of construction. The driveway is the driveway is a 200-foot long driveway. It's the minimum width allowed by town code, and it's accessed only by a 1,200-foot long rutted, unimproved dirt road. I would make the statement that it's necessary for life safety and ingress and egress to this very remote residence. I hope the board had a chance to see the letters in the file. When I walked into this room, there was two. One was from a neighbor in support on the other side of private road, Michael Sinkyu. And the second one, which was from the chief of the Amagansett Fire Department, which I won't read, but I will highlight the two most pertinent statements. That this family restored a cul-de-sac. As you can see on the left side of that photograph, that cul-de-sac didn't exist, or it had existed for many, many years, and then it became overgrown. We restored that to provide access to a fire hydrant. It's the only fire hydrant on that road that had previously not been accessible had there been an emergency there. And so that emergency apparatus could safely turn around on the street itself, independent from the actual property. The second that the chief stated in that letter was that this residence is the most remote and furthest from the firehouse in Amagansett's district, which I think is important to note in terms of response time. And he closes his letter with a quote, and I'll quote, "Anything less than this existing conditions would pose a life safety hazard to its residents." I think that's a pretty poignant statement. I'd like the board to sort of mull on that. And I hope the board recognizes the application is a good one, and we'd request that it was expeditiously approved so that we're able to obtain a CO after a very long road. Otherwise, I have a question.
Okay, I was just going to ask you, it mentions here that there was 4 linear feet beyond the approval. 4 linear feet by what? What's the square area that's gone beyond the approval here?
That nomenclature is not mine, the 4 linear feet. So I can't describe where it came from because it's not in any of my materials. The square footage was an area of approximately 4 feet by 7 feet. If you want an actual dimension, I can.
Maybe if you just point it out, that would help him.
Yeah, well, no, this is fine.
We had the photos and we saw where the turnaround.
This is under construction. This isn't a good, I need the survey because this is actually a little bit more, it hasn't been revegetated yet. So it's a survey. So this is private road, this is the driveway, and the turnaround. Is this little section right here. The driveway had a rounded corner, and it has a square corner.
Yeah.
So it's.
And that brought it into the wetland.
It went
Beyond the
yes.
approval.
That's why I'm here.
Which is what, they're right.
I just want to note, because there may be a technicality, that there was something else that we had discussed prior, which was a Scrivener's error. That's in your record, but that's obviously not a matter for tonight because it's already been resolved. But I thought we should at least note that because you probably need to note it in your decision since I didn't get a decision from the last time I was here.
So just to clarify, and you've already stated this, but just to clarify, this turnaround was put there because you're so constricted, you felt you had to have a place to turn a car around coming out of the garage, and you extended out beyond the approval. That
Correct.
turnaround
There
was
is no
necessary.
there's no garage, but yes,
beyond
your
the
statement is
house,
correct,
yeah.
except for the garage. It's just to be able to back out of the parking space.
Okay.
And having been there, I can attest that it was tight.
So during the construction this is something I need clarification on. During the construction, at what point were you aware that there was a problem with this driveway? I mean, what point was the job at? Was the house built, not built, halfway built?
It wasn't, driveway, you improve a driveway at the last time. We had to put in the construction road, so the road went in, and it wasn't until we were laying gravel. So late spring 2022, the end.
And when, in your letter of October 14th, you note that you want to be more closely aligned with the New York State Fire Code with the driveway turnaround. But is that required by the New York State Fire Code for residential? I mean, is that something?
It is. It's a subjective interpretation of the code. They say when your front door is more than 300 feet from an improved road. So is this 1,200 foot long dirt road an actual improved road? Probably not. So I think yes, the answer is I do not believe that the property has proper access without having a turnaround, according to code.
Well, help me understand. We saw a photo where the water is running off to the side. It hasn't settled yet.
Right.
Is that right at that point where you widened it so you could have the turnaround?
I'm not entirely certain where that photo was. I know we had a deluge rain event last week. I'm assuming that's where it's from. I hadn't seen that prior to Ms. McGivern's photographs.
Something could be done to protect that from happening.
Exactly. I mean, how do we
otherwise
remediate?
Maybe you just add some vegetation there to. I mean, can you add vegetation?
We could certainly put in a few more bayberries. As you saw, we've revegetated up to the structures. We can revegetate up to in that particular location. I'll have to take a look at it, but I don't see why that can't be done.
Maybe it would help absorb the runoff.
Something to keep it from running into the marshes, right?
We could certainly do that.
Maybe we should hear from.
Yeah, let's hear from Brian. I think that.
Thank you, Britton. Ryan?
Brian Frank on behalf of the planning department. Again, if you, there were a few things going on that required some changes for some modifications for the zoning board. One of them is not the change in building coverage that was addressed in the survey. There are slight increases in total coverage and clearing from what was proposed on the survey to the as-built conditions. And if you review the decision, this application involved two properties. The property, the 45 Napeak Harbor Road, is a landlocked parcel. To get access to the property, an application was made on the adjoining property to the west, which has a completely different street address of 49 Private Road, and that, as a non-conforming property, needed a lot area variance to remove lot area from it to create an access easement to this property. The two applications were reviewed concurrently by the board. The decisions, pardon me, the decisions are very similar to each other. And if you read those decisions, or if you go into the records or watch the hearing, you'll see that a great deal of emphasis was placed on the 35-acre land donation of the Bistrian family from either the late 70s or the early 1980s, that the board used as a distinguishing characteristic for granting the application. So it's not like there was the board was firmly locked into a certain coverage or clearing to meet the natural resources special permit standards. I think the board recognized that it's an area in its decision, an area great sensitivity, needed some pretty substantial variances, and they found that the circumstances surrounding the history of the property were unique and compelling enough to grant the applications. So I don't think that the increases in coverage, total coverage or clearing, are really inconsistent with your decision. It is not often that an application has, I don't know when the last time an application was heard or considered for allowing the placement of fill directly in a wetland. And essentially the board has to determine if the, relatively nominal amount, that 4 linear feet, if you want me to try to get you the square footage of the area, I could do it, but
Are you in agreement with what was said by Britain? Is it's basically a 4 by 7 foot area, something like 28 or 30 square feet?
give or take.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a difference, if it's substantial enough to, measure it. I didn't do it for the notice. All I chose was the dimensional encroachment into the wetland. The placement of any fill within a wetland is a separate action in the code. And that's why it was noticed that way. And that's the way it would be noticed if it were proposed that way. That's the way the notice would be written. And if it were proposed that way at the time, it's most likely that adjustments would have been requested at the time to avoid that. And essentially the board has to determine if that amount warrants consideration for their modification.
Okay.
And would you recommend there be some plantings by where there's gullying?
Well, at this time of year, it's not going to do much. We're in November now.
Right, we're in November.
There's
now.
a lot of beach grass there now, and it will grow in as soon as March. But anything that's planted there right now is pretty much just going to sit there over the winter. So it's hard. It's hard for me to quantify the benefit of adding vegetation. I wouldn't do woody vegetation because that's going to make the driveway narrower. And if you want the stability of the sand anyway, it should really be either switchgrass or beach grass. I don't object to it, but I have a hard time telling you that I see a clear,
No, I get it. I get it.
a clear benefit there. That beach grass is going to clone, but for the winter, it's going to stay the way it looks.
When was I wasn't part of the board when this was granted. When was the house constructed?
The approval was in 2016. I'd have to, I'm sure Britton can tell you more easily than I can when
No,
ground was broken.
2019.
2019.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Brian?
So how would we, I don't know, how do you fix this? I mean, at this point, you can't, or we're just stuck with no modification request, revisions made to the.
Well, you either have a choice to, I think you have
to
two
grant
choices.
an
Either,
application for a natural resource special permit. It's kind of like in conflict with the code when you're allowing someone to fill in or alter a wetland.
Well, it kind of depends which code trumps. I mean, they have the house, they had permission to build the house.
But they also didn't come to the
Didn't have
board for a
permission to
modification.
build.
This
Yeah,
driveway was not permitted. And if you had an opportunity for a modification, you might have had less decking, worked within, would have been in the board's purview to sort of, I don't know, I'm just, talking
Have
out
something
loud.
else done.
I
so
Have
that the
something else
turnaround could-
besides going into. the
I think it's an understandable oversight, having been on the property.
I've been on the property too, and there's a big outside deck that could have maybe been smaller. It's a difference of opinion, that's all.
But all of that was part of a previous approval. So the real question from us today Brian, was whether or not filling in additional wetlands should be allowed by the board at this time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the issue. I mean, the structures, no problem, but the wetland situation, I'm having a problem with that.
Anyone else? Questions for Brian? Thank you, Brian. Anyone in the public want to
Not
speak?
the
on-
time to plant, but something should be done.
Is there anyone in the public who wants to
Yeah.
speak on this
I
issue?
don't know.
Matt, do we have anyone on the phones?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
I guess the only point I'd like to make, which, just so it hits the record, because I think it is important that this record, it's a robust one, is that a lot of times, and I can think of most of them that I've represented in ditch plains, you actually have to cross a wetland with a driveway to access a parcel. And it's something this board has seen fill. You've seen bridges. This is not a unique situation for the purpose of a driveway. And I will also point out that there is no variance relief with what you're looking at. It is simply a natural resources special permit. And should we have the fire marshal or someone else weigh in on this, I believe New York State code would trump the zoning code in the town of East Hampton, but the board can deliberate and as they see fit.
Okay, thank you. Matt, do we have any, did I ask you already if anyone in line? You said no. Okay, thank you.
In the matter of Bruce Bistrian, 45 Private Road, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-110-02-12-16. I move that the hearing be closed and the public record be closed.
I'll second.
I concur.
I concur. Thank you, Bristol.
Thank you.
Get the chair back in here.
I'm sorry?
I got the second.
I concurred, I think.
You're not even sure.
Oh, you're welcome.
Tonight. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our hearings. We'll go into our work session. We have one post-hearing decision this evening, and that is HRH Design Group at LLC at 172 Cranberry Hole Road in Amagansett, Suffolk Tax Map Number 152-1-13. The applicant is HRH Design Group LLC. Size and location is 318,512 square feet at 172 Cranberry Hole Road, Beach Hampton, Section 5, map number 1763 in Amagansett. The description is to construct a 7,103 square foot residence with 5,014 square foot of patios and decking, a 320 square foot detached gym with outdoor shower, 648 square foot detached garage, a sanitary system, a 1,250 square foot swimming pool, spa, pool fence, pool equipment, gravel driveway, driveway gate, and planters on a parcel containing duneland and freshwater wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to section 255-420 of the East Hampton Town Code. Zoning district is A5 residence, AE flood zone, elevation 10, and the secret class is type 2. And I believe member Johan did the field report, and I think you'll take us off on this.
I will. 1 minute. Thank you. The board will remember that the hearing for this application was held on August 23rd, 2022. That time we were working from a survey that was dated January 11th, 2022. The house prints were from Delandro Andrews, last revised November 16th, 2021. HRH was represented by Rich Warren. What was needed was an NRSP and no variances. The lot size here is 318,518 square feet.
A big one.
A big one, almost 8 acres. An earlier proposed project received an administrative NRSP on April 9th, 2019 for a 5,536 square foot residence, a 1,000 square foot pool, 4,367 square foot of decking, and 196 square foot pool house, and a 585.6 square foot garage. The current proposal by the new owner of the property is for a 7,103 square foot residence that represents an increase of 1,567 square feet. The lot coverage has been increased in this proposal from 13,613 square feet to 15,878 square feet, where 77,000 square feet is the maximum allowed. The total lot clearing is reduced from 43,211 square feet to 43,097 square feet. This large parcel represents one of the finest examples of native dune land and vegetation along Cranberry Hole Road, with a mix of biologically diverse habitats with taller hardwoods lining the roadside that includes 3 species of oak, eastern red cedar, sassafras, pignut hickory, and red maple, with bayberry and a variety of ferns and switchgrass and other indigenous plant species, all in the area. Away from the road, the dune land habitat is more evident with tall, established pitch pine and bearberry and lichen covering sections of the undulating sand dunes that track through most of the parcel. There are also 2 pocket wetlands exhibiting typical indigenous native species on the property. I'm introducing this information at this point because I think that it's important for the applicant and the public to understand that we on the zoning board recognize the environmental significance of this parcel and the implications that are inherent with any development on a parcel of this nature. Proposed development, therefore, has been reviewed with scrutiny concerning its appropriateness on this environmentally sensitive land. At the hearing, questions were raised about the perceived sprawl of the project, the need for a comprehensive building protocol, and a grading plan. HRH submitted a building protocol that they produced on 9/15/22, and we received on 9/20/22. An additional survey was dated 9/22/22 that included drainage and clearing details. The cut and fill plan was submitted that was dated 9/15/2022. Now, this parcel is a very large parcel, and we all had took the same attitude here, that we thought there's probably very few parcels that come in front of us that have such significant amount of environmentally sensitive and environmentally individual land here. We're looking at something that we don't often see in its entirety. There's a great variety of vegetation here. And so because of that sensitive nature, absolutely the most important thing that we were talking about at that time was, if a project was to move forward, how is that project to be controlled? How are we to know that we would not have collateral damage to the surrounding land? How do we see to it that the project takes place with the least amount of damage to the environment and the most positive benefit into the future of how this parcel can be used by the potential or the applicant's potential home? I think that the submissions we received after the meeting did what they could to address this. This was addressed in the building protocol. It stated clearly that no parking, no lumber, or no building materials would be stored, and no vehicles would go beyond the cleared area, and that's something was of great interest to all of us, because the undulating nature of this parcel is such that it would not take much for people to get out of that cleared area and do a significant amount of damage. I don't think it can be overstated just how important this piece is if you look at it and what it represents in this particular area. However, I do think that the cut and fill plan did give us a notion of where this is going and defined exactly what they hope to do. I think that the size of the property, being almost 8 acres, also brings us to the position where we have to assess whether or not we think that the client here, the applicant here, has a right to build a house of this size here on this place. It's important to note that we had a phone call, and we had a phone call and a letter in opposition to this. One of them complaining about the potential sprawl and the size of the project being increased, the house particularly being increased by 1,500 feet. At that time, one of the issues that was brought up, and it was addressed by the chair, was whether or not buildings could be snugged up and brought back in. Initially, the garage was stated to be 620 feet, and at that hearing, it was agreed that they would redo the size of the garage to bring it down into 600 feet, an allowable dimension, and that they would do what they could to snug the gym in closer away from the clearing line and closer they can get it into the house. It was also stated by the representative of the applicant that the owners were interested in making it look as surgical as possible, and were hoping to, among other things, tag trees that existed, to have them saved, putting fences around them to see that when this was all done, even ones within the clearable area would be sustained, and that the hope was that they would be able to revegetate this and make it look as if maybe the house just existed within the natural terrain. There was also the notion that they would do some raised planters, and those planters were put forward initially in the planning, and that's where the only thing that would be non-native on the property was stated by the applicant would be what went into those planters. I think when we consider something like this, we all swallow hard because it would be nice to think that this piece of property could have somehow avoided any kind of construction. It's important to remember, though, that an administrative application was approved, the NRSP, an administrative NRSP was approved previously, and that although the size of the property, the size of the house has gotten larger, there is not an increase in a request for cleared area, total lot clearing on this. And I think that brings it back to asking ourselves, would this project be denied simply because of the size of the house? If in fact the damage that was previously approved, the potential damage was previously approved, would not necessarily be increased by what's happening here. I think it's a tough one. And I think that my gut tells me that I want to see that stay as an open piece of land. But I also know that there's a certain responsibility that we have to address the rights of the landowner in this case. So given that, and knowing that I would have liked to, I wish that this house had stayed the size that it had been. And there was also one other thing I might mention, and that is that the water table here was discussed and whether or not we would see that the house would stay within 2 feet, 2 feet above existing water table. And we were assured that it would, and it was addressed later on in HRH's, not HRH, InterScience memo. So I think at this point, we look at what's been offered. We look at what I think is an attempt to make it a comprehensive and solid application. And we had decided on that basis. Doing all of that, and then looking at the standards of 255-551 RSP standards, there's the preservation of natural resources. Are we doing the best to do that? All structures and uses other than coastal structures be located upland as natural resource and ecosystem. Have we assured that we're doing our best to preserve the natural resources? Yeah, the best thing would be not to have a house. But if we're going to have a house, I think what they've laid out here is a plan that shows us that promises us that additional damage will not be done, and that majority of this almost 8 acre parcel will stay in its current condition. I don't think there's a real reason for me, therefore, to deny this. And at this point, having spent some time looking at it, and again, I have misgivings about developing any parcel like this, but nonetheless, I'm willing at this time, Mr. Chairman, to approve this application.
Thank you. Joe?
Well, that was pretty comprehensive. I think I have similar sentiments, but it's not like it was listed on town CPF eligible property, and it's not like Nature Conservancy or Peconic Land Trust stepped forward to take the property out of play. It is a severely constrained property, but they do appear to be having all the construction outside of the wetlands. It does have wetlands on 3 sides, the north, the south, and the east. But in terms of being environmentally sensitive, they've represented there won't put any lawn in, that they'll replace and revegetate with all native plants. To the point Member Johan brought up, that if they do put in non-native species, it'll go in planters. I think it's important to remember that they've agreed to the scenic easements that were proposed by the planning department, and that the town is, I mean, it's a normal thing, but that the town is going to inspect the boundary of clearing to limit the amount of clearing that happens. And I think to the extent the neighbors had expressed concerns, they were pretty thoroughly addressed in the letter of InterScience dated September 20th, 2022. And I'd be inclined to approve this project.
Thank you. Terry?
Okay. I hate to agree with my fellow board members, but I too struggled with this at first at the night of the hearing because of the increase in the size of the structures and the house. And I was very leery about it. However, with a lot of the logic that was already presented to us, I too am looking to approve it. I did go through the construction protocol. It seems very thorough to me. The one thing I didn't like was that they're going to encourage carpooling by workers. I think that shouldn't just be encouraged, it should happen. And when I guess it was when they had the overlay diagram that HRH had shown us, Rich Warren, it is a lot larger, but when you look at the entire property with the overlay in it, to me, it was also reasonable considering the huge size of this property. As far as the scenic easement, they did say they would be conform with all the recommended project conditions in the TAM. I didn't see anything about the scenic easement. Laura gave, did we have a plan?
There is a
aside from
planning
what Laura
department
put out?
sketch.
Yeah, but I didn't see it. Did anybody see it?
I
I'd
think
like
it's
to
in the
see it.
doc- Maybe it's in the doc files.
I think it's this one
Well,
here.
that was the one Laura,
20,
it's June 22nd, but I did not see it online. That's when I
okay.
called Laura
All right,
and that
but I
had a
don't know
scenic
where.
easement drawing. And I don't know if that's the same one that the planning department has. I don't know, Brian, can you get us that?
Is it, can we bring it up on the smart board, you mean?
Yeah, just bring it up. I'd like to, I mean, the one that was in the admin that we were emailed today has it, they're very narrow portion of the property that runs up to, I guess it's Bendigo Road. That entire thing was the scenic easement that was in the admin. I don't know if that's the same one that planning department did June 20th. What? That was a modification. Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know if that's the one, this says dated June 28th, 2022. Adapted from the approved survey. We don't have it either.
Well, we would
So
have
can
to-
you pull up the one that was on that modification? And that I know Laura put out on the website and sent us a copy.
Not the remote in. Give me a moment. I'll
Yeah,
get it.
okay. It's actually when I saw it, I was like to have more. But I do think the project overall, yeah, with the updated documents that they presented to us, the protocol, the cut and fill, the co-chair already addressed all those dates and the submissions. We received a lot of it on September 20th. And the cut and fill and the survey. So the only question I still had in my mind was about the scenic easement. Absolutely, we need it. And I wonder if it could be even larger if we find out what it is.
Yeah, that's good.
And there were letters. Yeah, there was Joe Karpinski had written a letter,
Yeah.
against the project. And Wick, another neighbor, Robert and Deborah.
Robert and
Wick,
Deborah Wick, yeah.
who wrote a very lovely letter and very wonderful for wildlife. But again, this is a property that's been approved for a building.
I thought the TAM,
In the project conditions D, it lists scenic easements per the sketch dated June 28, 2022.
right, exactly.
Yeah. So where is it? This one wants-
Well, but it's referenced, right?
Yeah,
Let's-
we could
let's-
reference it
let's
as
go
a
with reference,
condition.
so
We
it's
can
our-
reference it.
Right.
Don't you want to
Right.
see it?
Yeah, but, are we gonna leave this decision open
I don't know.
unless we can't see it, or are we gonna be okay with the reference?
Did anyone see the modification one?
I guess my impression was that the scenic easement of June 28, 2022 was Now I'm confused. This is, Eleni wrote this TAM on June 29th, 2022. The administrative application went through in April of 2019. So my impression was the scenic easement was bigger, but I can't put my finger on why.
Basically, what I saw in the 2019 was this leg, this entire
Yeah.
leg was the area designated as a scenic easement.
Yeah.
And is that enough? I mean, it's toward the wetlands, right? They're on the north, south, and the east. Is that east, west?
Now I remember. She wrote the applicant should speak to whether an easement along the eastern side. I don't know. Now I'm wondering whether.
It says these easements were agreed upon within the 2019 administrative
you're right.
NRSP.
You're right.
They should be approved by the town prior to, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we know that. I guess it's the one from 2019.
Right. That's what the TAM, I have it in front of me, says as well.
Yeah, but we need to know what that is. So basically what I saw, and it is out on the website now, I don't know, Laura, you can look at it, is this entire, so I guess that's the eastern leg, east. Okay, so we have a picture of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I agree with my fellow board members. The key factor for me, in terms of the increase in the size of the house was the fact that the proposed clearing of beach vegetation is roughly the same as was in the administrative permit approved in 2019. And this parcel is over 7 acres, almost 8, and all of the proposed structures are located more than 150 feet from freshwater wetlands. So I do feel that this is in compliance with 255-551. I feel that all of the conditions outlined in the technical analysis memo should be incorporated into the decision because it does talk about duneland soils and areas disturbed by construction activities being revegetated and our scenic easement. But for these reasons, I am, and also there's going to be, covenants and restrictions. But I do think this is in compliance with the code. And also, I don't know if this was already brought up, but if I missed it, I apologize. Was the garage reduced to 600 square feet?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what they removed the variance.
Okay, so they actually removed that one.
They condensed the foot. They condensed the sprawl.
Okay, so thank you. So
And they did pull the
I'm not really
gym
sure
in
how far
closer.
they
Yeah.
moved over the gym. I couldn't tell.
They did bring it
Okay.
in. If you take a look at the relative to the,
Yeah.
brought it in a little bit.
okay, so
Responded to the
I
I'm in
request.
favor
I
of
guess
this
the only other
application.
thing is we don't have a vegetation plan. I know they wanted to mark certain trees to keep and, but should we still get a planting plan from them?
No, but we could make that conditional on the planning
Thank you,
department. right?
conditional, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And Brian, you found it? I think you saw something out
I
there.
did. I just put it away because I didn't think
You
you
just
wanted
put it
to
away. Now we want to look
It's,
at it again.
It basically showed everything in the leg of, I'm sorry, let me zoom out.
Not here.
That much. So the scenic easement was proposed and agreed to in this shank of the property. And then again, within 100 feet of the wetlands to the south. If you want me to pull it up
Yeah,
again.
pull it up again.
Okay.
Sure, good practice.
For whom?
Oh, I didn't have it up now. Oh, great.
Messed them up.
Where's my screen sharing?
While he looks at that, I might as well give you my little assessment, which is short because I agree with everybody on the board. And I just want to say that I agree with our members, and I think properties like this, vistas like this, natural resources like this lends to the wisdom of the town in developing the NRSP standards. And I also think that coming to this board also allowed it to get a little additional level of scrutiny from the administrative application there. Not to say that that's wrong, but in this particular parcel, I think it helped. Right. So, but I do agree that, and the applicant showed themselves to be willing to do whatever possible to bring it in. So,
You know, now
Yeah,
that,
be
oh, wait,
flexible.
before he takes it away again, let's
Okay.
look at it.
So,
I remember that diagram too now. Yep.
Yeah, so it's that bottom piece also, that
Yeah.
little pie piece, and then, okay. So that's out, you got that out of the file, right? Out of on the website, or?
I got that set of the
So we'll
planning
have
department
it.
file.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Council, you good?
Yes.
All right, we go on to extensions of time. We have John Foley at 18 3 Mile Harbor Drive in East Hampton, Suffolk, tax map number 300-74-2-27.1. Board members, this is a recent one, I believe it is, but they have completed the work and are looking for a C of O. So that would be in my jurisdiction, so I'll make a motion if it's okay with you. Everybody agrees.
Yeah, it's okay.
To approve the application of John Foley, the extension of time for John Foley at 18 3 Mile Harbor Drive in East Hampton, Suffolk, tax map number 300-74-2-27.1.
I'll second it.
Concur.
I concur.
I concur.
Thank you. We have minutes of approval, draft minutes of November 1st, 2022.
They were wonderful. I make a motion to approve these minutes for November 1st, it was, right? For November 1st for the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
I concur.
I was absent.
I concur as well. Thank you. We go on to our resolutions now. We have Sylvia Wong at 25 Surf Drive, Amagansett, Suffolk, tax number 300-174-3-4.1. Council?
So this was to construct a 200 square foot swimming pool, 642 square foot pool deck, pool equipment, pool fencing and gates, propane tanks, and to upgrade the sanitary system that contains freshwater wetlands. This application was approved by all members that were present that day. And it was approved on the reduction. They did present where they moved the pool over a little bit more, and they made some adaptions based on your suggestions, which guided your guys' approval on this one, on the board's approval on this one.
I'd make a motion in the matter of Sylvia Wong, 25 Surf Drive, Amagansett, Suffolk County tax map number 300-174-03-4.1 to adopt the decision as written.
I'll second it.
I concur.
I concur.
I concur as well. Next, we have Henry L. Drucker at 298 Further Lane, East Hampton, Suffolk, tax map number 300-189-6-11.5. Council?
This was to construct a 60 by 120 sunken tennis court with a 235 square foot pergola platform, storage bunker, walkways, planter box, and to relocate the existing pool equipment. There was, all members agreed on this as well. They all concurred in the decision. There was a stipulation that they would have some type of soil removal plan, which was added into the decision and conditioned on that. Once again, this was also based off of a modified application after submittal and after comments from the from the zoning board.
Very good. Thank you. In the matter of Henry L. Drucker at 298 Further Lane, East Hampton, Suffolk, tax map number 300-189-6-11.5, I make a motion to adopt a resolution as written.
I'll second it.
Concur.
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 Thank you. Next, we have Sean and Patricia Bratches at 133 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-176-5-24. Council?
This application was to construct a 192 square foot swimming pool with pool equipment on a parcel of land containing beach vegetation. The pool was very small in size and it felt like it met all of the guidelines in this one. This is for, all members were concurring on this as well. Member McGovern was absent on the determination of this, but all 4 other members were concurring on that day.
I think I covered this that night for Joan. I can make the motion.
Mhm.
Yeah. In the matter of the application of Sean and Patricia Bratches, 138 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-176-5-24, I make a motion to accept the determination as written.
I'll second.
I'll concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. Next, we have Judy Myers at 2 Gardner Drive in Amagansett, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-174-3-29. Council?
This was to allow a 34.5 square foot outdoor fireplace, which included a chimney barbecue, 192 square foot gravel area, a 1,642 square foot slate patio with slate walkways, a 6-foot wood fence, and an AC unit to remain on the parcel within 150 feet of freshwater wetlands. This was for NSRP plus several variances. Based on the location of certain structures, the board agreed that they were too close to the wetlands. Specifically, the chimney and the barbecue were outlined as far as them being built after without a building permit, which could have solved some of the issues. Some of the application was approved. The 6-foot wood fence and AC unit was approved to remain on the parcel within 150 foot of the freshwater wetlands and within the front yard setbacks. The denial of the outdoor fireplace, the gravel area, the slate patio with the slate walkways, all members were in agreement on this, concurring on the decision as a whole, as with the approvals and denials, with Member McGovern being absent on that side.
Okay, so I'll do this one. I make a motion in application of Judy Myers at 2 Gardner Drive in Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-174-03-29 to approve the resolution as written. The determination is written.
Second.
I concur.
I concur as well. Thank you. We next have Patrick D. Marcellier at 15 Island Road in East Hampton, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-93-3-9.
This was to essentially for the allowance of two structures, 192 square foot of decking and a children's playhouse. They were both constructed within the wetland setbacks. They did require a natural resource permit and some variances. The board as a whole did approve the remaining decking, the 192 square foot decking, and denied the children's playhouse. That was something that the board felt could be moved to a more conforming area. It was something that was easily movable, and something that may not, remain on the property forever. I don't believe, I think all members. All members were concurring. Member McGovern was abstaining in this one.
Thank you. With that, I make a motion with Patrick D. Marcellier at 15 Island Road, East Hampton, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-93-3-09 to adopt the resolution as written and hope the applicant comes back with clearing issues on the adjoining property. So anyway.
All right.
I'll second it.
Concur.
I concur.
Thank you.
Forgot about that.
Vice Chair, would you like to close us out?
Yes, I would, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing. Thank you. The public hearing and the work session of the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals for November 15th, 2022 at 9:09 p.m.
Second.
I concur.
I concur. Thank you, everyone.